everybody. It is 6 o'clock on March 14th, 2019. Welcome to the monthly meeting of the Poway Unified School District Board of Education. We'll start this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Ready? Begin. We're on to agenda item 3.2, report out of closed session. Ms. Couvret.
Closed session began at 4:11. The Board of Education took the following action in closed session. 2.1-A-1. In the matter of pending existing litigation, case number 201-8100978, on a motion by O'Connor Radcliffe and a second by Zane, the board voted to approve a final settlement of $6,500. The vote of the board was as follows. The ayes were unanimous with Patel, O'Connor Radcliffe, Couvret, Beatty, and Zane. In favor, there were no others. On the matter of 2.1-A-2, in the matter of pending existing litigation, case number 201-8110987, on a motion by O'Connor Radcliffe and a second by Couvret, the board voted to approve a final settlement of $12,000. The vote was unanimous with Patel, O'Connor Radcliffe, Couvret, Beatty, and Couvret all in favor. On 2.3-A through E, there's no reportable action from closed session. The board will take action in open session. Agenda items 8.1 and 8.2. And there was no other reportable action was taken during closed session. Closed session adjourned at 5:12.
Thank you very much. We'll now call for members in attendance. Agenda item 3.3. We have all members in attendance. Thank you. And welcome to the public, Mr. Schwartz.
Welcome to the monthly meeting of the Board of Education. If you would like to address the board on any agenda item, please complete a speaker slip. All requests to speak must be submitted to the clerk of the board before the agenda item comes up. If you are requesting an agenda item be pulled for public discussion from section 5.0, consent calendar, a speaker slip must be submitted to the clerk now, as approval of the consent calendar is one of the first items up for approval. Item 4.2 is placed on our agenda to enable members of our community to bring items that are not placed anywhere else on the agenda to the board's attention. Speaking time is limited to 3 minutes per speaker with a maximum of 15 minutes per topic, unless waived by the board president. There will be a 30-second yellow warning light when time is running out. Speakers may only speak on one topic under item 4.2 and may not defer their speaking time to another individual. If there are concerns regarding specific individuals, it is preferred that the speaker refrain from naming them publicly to respect their privacy. The board will accept and review any written materials that would provide more specific information. The Brown Act does not permit board action or extended discussion of any item not on the agenda, but your concerns will be referred to staff. With that said, welcome and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Agenda item 3.5, approval of agenda sequence. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
On a motion by O'Connor Ratcliffe, second by Couvret. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. That brings us to 4.0, oral presentations. We'll start with student board representatives. And do we have, from Poway High School, Lucy Barreto?
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Hello, I'm Lucy Barreto, the new Poway High Student Body President, taking over for Sean Fallon. I'm happy to report that our ASB just transitioned into a new class, and we are excited to have new leadership on our campus. Our peer counseling in ASB is currently planning a campus cleanup for the upcoming month, and on Tuesday, ASB hosted a successful 8th grade family night. Our robotics team recently won the Chairman's Award at their last tournament. Mr. Parr, the robotics teacher, won Mentor of the Year, and student Ethan Champion was honored on the Dean's List. As for winter sports, our girls varsity water polo won CAF and states. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have from Rancho Bernardo High School, Christina Hartley. Welcome.
Good evening, board members, and thank you all for having me here tonight. My name is Christina Hartley, and I am the new ASB president for Rancho Bernardo High School. I am excited to be representing Rancho Bernardo for the upcoming year. Our students and staff have been very busy the past couple of months. Starting with our ASB, who put on an outstanding winter formal, this year's theme was a masquerade ball and was a huge success. For Valentine's Day, ASB wrote every student and staff's name on a red heart and placed them around the campus, and students and staff appreciated being recognized this way. We held our annual February blood drive in support of Kyle Kraska's organization called the Celebration of Heroes. Kyle gave a presentation the Wednesday before about how people who donated blood saved his life and encouraged others to participate in the blood drive. Our wrestling team had the best season in RBHS history with 7 male wrestlers and our first female wrestler. They all qualified for the state tournament in Bakersfield. 4 medaled, including 8th place, 4th place, 2nd place, and for the second time, Jaden Abbas won a state championship in his weight level. RB finished 8th overall in the state and 2nd in San Diego, which is the best we have ever done. Girls water polo won Palomar League champions this year and competed in the Open Division playoffs for the first time in school history. The RB concert, band, and wind ensemble earned unanimous superior rating at the North County Band and Orchestra Festival, which was held at El Camino High School. Our competitive dance team won a $1,000 prize in their tournament in Florida, and last weekend, our eMotions robotics team took 3rd out of 47 teams at the Del Mar competition. They look forward to competing in Lancaster again and possibly going to nationals for a second time. Last week, our friends at the library held their annual Tech Week, where representatives from Sony set up virtual reality stations for students to interact with. During the month of February, we celebrated Black History Month by putting posters of inspirational individuals around our school campus. Our Bronco players are preparing for their spring musical, Peter Pan, which opens next week. Our Best Buddies Club promoted inclusion by hosting a lunchtime activity to spread the word to end the R word and support inclusion. In addition, they are getting ready to host their annual Best Buddies Ball, where students and their buddies from a variety of North County schools come together for a fun-filled night. Spring sports have started, which means there's always an event or game happening somewhere around campus. Our counselors have been very busy visiting the middle schools and just hosted 8th grade parent night on Tuesday, where 8th graders and their families were able to get a little glimpse of RBHS. ASB is holding a Happiness Day on March 20th that will help students feel included and happy. We also are getting ready to participate in our 3rd No Place for Hate activity, which will be done in classrooms next week. The RBHS Fight Against Hunger Club has also raised money in order to host a food packing event on April 24th. Their goal is to pack 40,000 meals, which will be sent to both Haiti and San Diego residents in need. With April coming up, ASB is planning on having events throughout the month to celebrate Month of the Military Child, which includes students participating in spirit days such as Purple Up for Military Kids Day. Lastly, our Broncos are getting ready for finals as quarter 3 comes to an end, and the new quarter will start on April 1st. Thank you for your continued support of the Broncos, and have a great night. I'm looking forward to sharing more with you in May.
Thank you. And last, we have from Westview High School, Dean Olson.
Good evening, PowayUSD board members, staff, students, and members of the community. My name is Dean Olson, and it is with great honor that I report to you from Westview High School. This past month, we held an annual winter rally themed A Tale as Old as Time, following the classic Disney movie, The Beauty and the Beast. This week was filled with fun activities that allowed our students to get involved and showcase their talents. On Tuesday of the week, we celebrated Lunar New Year with our student body by hosting a lunchtime event. In the gym, our student body got to enjoy dragon dancing from our ASF club, Kung Fu performed by one of our very own math teachers, and a spirited dance by Korean Pop Culture and Dance Club. These performances were accompanied by student-led booths including Westview's East Asian Culture Club, Korean American Student Association, and our Vietnamese Student Association, which allowed students to learn more about the holiday and its traditions. Throughout the week, our community service team hosted a book drive inspired by Belle's love for books and raised 356 books that were donated to Reach Out and Read San Diego, an early literacy program which gives young children a foundation for success by incorporating books into pediatric care. Our week ended with our winter rally, where MCs dressed up as Lumiere and Cogsworth and tested our school's Disney trivia, hosted class singing competitions, and recognized our counseling staff in front of the school for Counselor Appreciation Week. All of the events helped fuel our success at our winter formal, which was held at the Hilton Del Mar and planned by our class of 2021. With Valentine's Day approaching, ASB completely sold out and delivered over 350 carnations to students during their second periods. Our peer counseling program hosted a booth that day at lunch, celebrating Valentine's Day through self-love, where students could write positive things about themselves on a mirror. During that same week, we held activities celebrating Black History Month. Working with our Black Student Union, ASB created a variety of events that allowed our students to get educated and appreciate Black history. We created an educational video that discussed important leaders and events in history that were shaped by African Americans, which played to the entire student body. We held a captivating performance by the West African Drum and Dance Group, where they marched around our plaza and played music for our students. On Wednesday, we held an art walk brought to us by the World Beat Center in Balboa, where students could walk around and study different mediums of art. And on Friday, we were honored to have an actress who performed in Black Panther speak to students, as well as a well-known artist focused on ancestral, cultural, and Afrofuturistic art, who showcased many of her digital creations and presented to several academic classes on her work and what Black History Month meant to her. Next week, we're hosting our annual No Place for Hate Week, where the theme is centered around Let's Talk About It. We'll be educating students on the proper ways to go about discussing issues such as sexism, homophobia, racism, and prejudice. Alongside a video broadcasting to our school, ASB will be hosting several guest speakers, one being a Holocaust survivor and an inclusive speaker from the San Diego Alliance. We will also be recording podcasts where students can share their stories, and they will be accessible to all of our student body and community through SoundCloud. We are continuing our Language Matters campaign, where we emphasize the importance of the words people say and how they can affect our peers through student and staff involvement displays across our campus. And we are also hosting a live panel led by students and staff who will all speak to the challenges of diversity and inclusion. Our Westview Theater Company has worked tirelessly for months on their Addams Family production, and there are 3 more shows for our community this weekend. Westview is also extremely proud of our Mock Trial Club, who placed first overall out of the 26 San Diego high schools that competed in the citywide competition. The girls' water polo varsity team made it to CIF Division I finals again, and this season ended up winning the Division I title. Our boys' soccer team is CIF Division I champions, and they then advanced all the way to the state finals and placed runners-up. Westview athlete Tori Bjork won CIF wrestling for her weight class and placed 12th at the California State meet as a junior. I appreciate your time this evening, and I look forward to continuing to report on the student life and culture at Westview High School. It is always a great pleasure celebrating the many accomplishments of our Wolverine family. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And you might not know, but you are free to go if you have homework or other things you need to get to. You don't have to stay for the whole board meeting. Thank you. That brings us to item 4.2, public comments. Ms. Couvret?
Ms. Janet Latang, please.
Good evening, Superintendent Kim Phelps, Superintendent's Council, and trustees. Tonight I would like to share with you some event highlights for our PowayUSD performing arts groups for the next month. We have the opportunity to see musical performances at 3 of the high schools. You heard about from 2 of the schools, but I'll go over it again. Tonight, Friday and Saturday, March 15th and 16th, Westview High School Theater is performing the Addams Family at the Westview High School Performing Arts Center. Rancho Bernardo High School RB Bronco Players Theater are performing Peter Pan March 21st, 22nd, and 23rd at the Rancho Bernardo Performing Arts Center. And Mount Carmel High School Theater, their Theater at the Mount Group, are presenting The Wizard of Oz March 28th, 29th, 30th, and April 4th, 5th, and 6th at the Mount Carmel High School Performing Arts Center. Other notable local upcoming festival concerts that PowayUSD music groups are attending are March 9th, 10th, and 11th, the Poway Unified School District middle and high school bands and orchestras will be performing at the Poway Band and Orchestra Festival at the Poway Performing Arts Center. They will be performing before a panel of judges and will receive a critique. In addition to their on-stage performances, there will be sight reading sessions for the groups performing during the day. Admission is free for these day performances. There's an orchestra showcase the evening of Wednesday, April 10th, and the wind showcase the evening of Thursday, April 11th, with some of the finest bands and orchestras in the area performing. There is a charge for these evening showcase performances. The Poway Band and Orchestra Festival is a wonderful opportunity to support our POSD middle and high school instrumentalists and to expose our elementary students to live band and orchestra performances. Next week, on Monday, March 18th, the Poway, Rancho Bernardo, and Westview High School choirs are performing at the California Music Educators Association Choir Festival at the Performing Arts Center. As all the choirs will be in the audience when not performing, unfortunately, this festival is not open to the public. But I did want to mention it because it's a wonderful learning and performance opportunity for our high school choirs. And I bet you guys could get in if you asked nicely. But I can't, so. Let's see, I hope you all will be able to attend at least one of these performances this month. I know our artists appreciate your support. And finally, I just learned this tonight, and I wanted to share with you that Poway High School Wrestling Program has received approval as an Olympic Regional Training Center. And there's an article in the Palmerado News, they can say it much better than I, and I'm quoting them, the on-campus Prairie El Monday Wrestling Center, which houses the Titan program, will also be home for the Olympic hopefuls and NCAA champions to train alongside high school and younger wrestlers. The Poway High School Monday Wrestling Center joins 64 Olympic regional training centers on college campuses, but we're the only high school training center, which is so exciting, so I had to share that news. Thank you very much.
Terry Norwood.
Good evening, Superintendent Kim Phelps, Council and Trustees. Thank you for your interest in improving art education in our district. As you know, March is Arts Education Month. The California Education Code requires art, but what should students be receiving in arts education at each grade level? California State PTA, in partnership with Create California, is pleased to launch the Parent's Guide to the Visual and Performing Arts in California Public Schools. The reader-friendly guide provides an overview of what children across the state should learn in the art disciplines of dance, music, theater, and the visual arts by the end of each grade level. By using the guide, Create California shows that all students should have the opportunity to express their unique individuality through creating and learning in and through the arts. California State PTA adopted the Declaration of Rights of All Students to Equity in Arts Learning to reaffirm its commitment to a full curriculum that includes the arts. Research shows that the arts play a role in human development and in community building. The art helps teachers and students address issues of diverse languages, race, culture, and learning styles through multiple entry points. The value of the arts for all students in California classrooms is confirmed by the inclusion of arts instruction at all grade levels in the mandates of the California Education Codes 51210 and 51220. CAPTA is the largest advocacy group working to improve and striving to impact the lives of all children and families. Please utilize the guide to learn more about how to incorporate art education in all forms for all children in PUSD. For more information on arts education efforts and to download the guide and the Declaration of Rights, visit capta.org/arts-education. And thank you very much for your time.
Cheryl Hernandez. Oh, and Candace Hutchinson. Thank you. You bet.
Good evening, Board. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Cheryl Hernandez, and I'm with Candace Hutchison. We are both parents of students in the RB High School Drama Program. Many of you may be aware of the recent spring tune-up that we had over at the high school. And it was a day of the community coming together to take care and prepare the PAC for the upcoming performances that we're going to see with especially Peter Pan, as has been mentioned, as well as the many, many other performances that happen in that PAC almost on a daily basis. The Bronco player families would like to extend a thank you to Chad Coster from the district for addressing 3 of the immediate safety needs that occurred and the support and the ongoing guidance we received from both Vice Principal William Egan and our principal, Mr. David Lemaster, in getting much of the much needed attention to these items. Many of them had severe safety hazards going on. Thank you also to Miss O'Connor Ratcliffe and Miss Miss Ginger, for also being part of that important day. We really appreciate it. If you didn't hear about that PAC day that was going on, you may think, well, it was a day that we all got together and we got that PAC ready for specifically for maybe that production of Peter Pan. You may think that we were busy building sets, finishing costumes, pulling out props, and helping students generally prepare the theater for the show, which usually what happens on a weekend during there. Well, what we did with close to 100 volunteers spread out over 6 hours was we scrubbed walls and floors and baseboards. We vacuumed carpets that had not been vacuumed in maybe 2 years. We swept walkways. We cleaned windows. We removed garbage from storage areas. We removed broken lights and old equipment that hadn't been used in many years and was being stored in student areas. We vacuumed and cleaned and wiped down theater seats. We cleaned the orchestra pit that had not been cleaned, record has it, in at least 2 years. We did basic repairs on cabinets, closets, and racks. We mopped and cleaned the floors, carpets of storage areas, and much of the sound booth. We got an awful lot done.
But what we couldn't do was replace light bulbs in the crossover entryway. So there's areas of the schools the kids enter that there's no lighting. So the door closes and it's dark. We couldn't replace the burnt out floor lights along the theater seats. There are lights there that have never worked in the 3 years that my son has been at the school. We couldn't fix the sink in the backstage area that doesn't drain, that water doesn't come out of. We couldn't fix the faucet in the bathroom there that's rusted, that the kids can't even use in the bathroom. We couldn't cover up the exposed electrical outlets that are on the theater stage that the kids use. It was amazing really to see people even outside of our immediate drama student area come to help and work hard. We had football players come out. We had band students. We had other kids from other organizations and parents come to assist. A grad from 2011 who volunteers at the school, who's been volunteering there for a few years, said this is the first time he's ever seen the floor vacuumed since 2011. One of the football players said he didn't understand how the kids could get everything done in drama. If those repairs were needed on the football fields, they would have been done in a day. They wouldn't have spent years waiting for them. They said they were glad to help because they loved coming to the performances on campus, but it was just over and over again the same comments. Tennis players who said they never have to clean up the tennis courts because they're always cleaned for them. So what we really want to know now is not why it was in the condition, but what we can do to make sure this doesn't happen going forward. We shouldn't have to spend 100 people 6 hours on a day to clean up something that our kids use every day. Thank you.
Shelley McDonald.
For the record, Shelley McDonald. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak to you tonight. I'd like to start out with at Bernardo Heights, we're committed to sustaining a school community where all members feel safe. We hold high expectations for all students. We provide strong core programs and multiple pathways to ensure each student acquires the key skills and knowledge, the necessary habits of mind and behaviors and attitudes essential for future success. I'm a parent of 2 middle school students at BHMS, and hopefully both of those statements are familiar to all of you. As the first statement is the first line in the BHMS Family Handbook, and the second is from Poway Unified School District's mission statement. Approximately a year ago today, you heard from a family who talked about an incident where a student was attacked by another student on campus. From other students, I've heard instances of significant bullying on campus. All reports seemingly resulting in little or no attention by the administrators. Approximately a month ago, Bernardo Heights Middle School administration, and subsequently the assistant superintendent and student support services, Mr. Mizell, and the superintendent, Dr. Kim Phillips, heard from our family regarding an incident where my son was sexually assaulted on campus and then taunted for being raped by other student who witnessed the assault. The same perpetrator then non-verbally taunted my son the following week after this was reported and harassed my younger son on campus under the care of an after-school ACES program, as evident by not only witnesses but video surveillance. At the same time, reported incidents of our son being called the N-word by a different group of student on campus and in the classrooms. I don't hold the school to a standard of 100% safety for my kids, neither physical nor mental, as I cannot guarantee that for my own kids. However, I do believe there is a reasonable expectation for there to be timely investigation to serious allegations such as this and consequences for violating school policies, state education codes of conduct, as well as the law. I speak to you today not as a perfect parent with perfect children, nor as somebody with all the answers, but as a concerned parent and member of the community. The easy solution for our family is to just simply move and go to a different school district. I do not expect children to be perfect nor make all the right decisions. However, I do believe that there is a reasonable expectation for swift and appropriate consequences issued by the school for infractions of inappropriate and criminal behavior on school grounds. 2 full school days passed before any of the students who were identified as perpetrators were called in for question. This was only after I requested another meeting with school administrators. Additionally, although we sent direct correspondence to the assistant superintendent and the superintendent, we have not received a courtesy outreach directly from either one. I don't know if we're better than this. I hope we are, but I do believe we need to get better than this. I believe that the only way we can do this is to have not only rules for appropriate behavior, but enforce the rules and dole out timely and appropriate punishment. The students exhibiting predatory behavior and issuing racial epithets or other forms of bullying need to be held accountable for their actions. Otherwise, how is anything to change? These are our children, not to be confused with statistics or reluctance to respond to appropriate or timely manner that may result in that may negatively reflect the school or the district ratings. It's no exaggeration to inform you how the assault on my son had
All right, with no further public comment, we now move on to the consent calendar, agenda item 5.0. Items listed under consent agenda are considered routine and will be approved or adopted by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. However, any item may be removed from the consent calendar upon request by a member of the board, discussed and acted upon separately. Superintendent and staff recommend approval of all consent items. Do we have any items to pull? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Second.
On a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. That brings us to item 6.0, personnel support services. Item 6.1 is a public hearing and approval of initial proposal from the Board of Education to Poway School Employees Association, Unit 1, 2019-2020, second reading. Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you, President Patel. 6.1 is the proposal from the district to PSEA, our Public School Employees Association, Unit 1, to Sunshine Articles to enter into negotiations for a successor agreement to the current contract. Last month, the proposal for the Sunshine Articles were presented for a first reading. This evening, they are presented to the board for a public hearing to give the opportunity to the public to present any opinion or comment regarding the articles, and finally, for the board to approve the adoption of this proposal.
Thank you. So we will open the public hearing at, 6:29? Do we have any public comments, Ms. Couvret? No public comments. We close the public hearing at 6:29. And with that, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
On a motion by Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe, second by Mr. Zane. Any discussion? Then can I hear a vote? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item 6.2.
Thank you, President Patel. 6.2, similarly, is the initial proposal to enter negotiations with PSCA Unit Number 2. This is an opportunity for the public to make comment regarding the proposal and for the board to adopt the initial proposal so that we can enter into negotiations.
Thank you. We will open the public hearing at 6:30. Are there any public comments? We will close the public hearing at 6:30, and I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
On a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. That brings us to item 6.3, which is the initial proposal for contract negotiations from Poway School Employees Association, PSCA Unit 1, 2019-2020. Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you. PSCA Unit 1 has submitted their initial proposal to enter into negotiations with the district. The board is asked to vote to receive their proposal tonight. There is no subsequent further action required of the board after tonight's vote to receive their proposal.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
On a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 6.4, similarly, initial proposal for contract negotiations from Poway Unified School Employees Association, PSCA Unit 2, 2019-2020. Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you. PSCA has submitted their initial proposal for Unit 2 to enter into negotiations with the district. Once again, this gives an opportunity for the board to vote to receive their proposal, and there is no subsequent action needed after tonight's meeting.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
On a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And that brings us to item 6.5, which is a first reading. Proposed 2019-2020 and 2020-2021 year-round student attendance calendar for Abraxas High School. First reading, Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you. As you know, Abraxas High School follows a year-round schedule on our calendar. These two calendars are what has been submitted for the 2019-2020, as well as subsequent years, 2020-2021. This is the first reading. It will be brought back to next month's board meeting for final approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions? That brings us to agenda item 7.0, business support services. Item 7.1 is approval and certification of a second interim financial report and approval of resolution number 45-2019 entitled Authorization to Revise the 2018-2019 Budget as reflected in the second interim financial report. Mr. Little.
Yes, thank you, President Patel. This evening, staff is pleased to share the district's second interim financial report for the fiscal year reporting period through January 31st, 2019 for the board's consideration and approval. We have provided the board with the SACS reports and have made a copy available to the public for its review as well. In our brief presentation this evening, we will focus on the district's general fund and compare current projections against our first interim report that we shared with the board last December. We will also consider our multi-year projections and potential budget reductions for 2019-2020. Let's start at the highest level and consider a summary of the general fund combined. This is our unrestricted and restricted resources. You can see at first interim we projected revenues of about $394.5 million, expenditures of about $415.3 million, resulting in a negative net activity of a little over $16 million. You'll recall also, as we reported at that time, that the $16 million included $13 million of prior year carryover being added into the budget as expense. At second interim, you'll note that our revenues are projected to decrease very little by about $115,000, while expenditures are projected to decrease more significantly by $6.9 million. This decrease in expenditures is due primarily to carryover spend down, which we'll see. Just as a reminder, and you've seen this slide before, here's a breakdown of the 2017-2018 unrestricted carryover that rolled into this year's budget as expenditures. Of the $8.6 million of total unrestricted carryover, at second interim, we project spending approximately one-half of it in the current year. Therefore, we've revised the related unrestricted expenditures downwards by approximately $4 million in the current report. Similarly, here are the components of our 2017-2018 restricted carryover that rolled over into this year's budget as expenditures. Again, we anticipate expending about half of these $4.6 million funds by year end, so we've revised the restricted expenditure budgets down by approximately $2 million. So going back to this slide, of the $6.9 million variance that you see in the net activity, so from $16 million to $9.1 million negative, that 6.9 variance, approximately $6.5 million is related to unspent carryover that I just reviewed. The remaining $400,000 represents current year operational adjustments. So diving in a little bit deeper, looking at the variances in the general fund unrestricted revenues, you can see a net loss of about $800,000. You'll note that we've adjusted the LCFF revenues downward a little by $171,000 due to our enrollment numbers. Local grants, we got a little bit more in unrestricted grants, $930. The largest adjustment has to do with the contributions. We increased our special ed contribution by $750,000, which is a decrease in revenues because we're moving it from one pot to another. On the other hand, we've increased the CFD reimbursement to district to reimburse the district for some startup money being allocated for Oak Valley and its classroom expansion project. On the expenditure side, we've noted about $6.2 million of adjustments, again downwards. As mentioned, about 4.3 of this is related to unspent carryover, and the remaining $2 million is related to SERP and vacancy savings, offset by an increase in the special ed legal costs and payout of our PERB settlement with PSEA. Turning to restricted revenues, we project an increase of a little over $800,000, and again, as you can see, the bulk of it is the $750,000 special ed contribution from our general fund. So our revenues on the restricted side are increasing at our own contribution. And then some minor little grant adjustments. And by the way, all these more detail can be obviously found in the SACS report, which breaks these down even further. On the expenditure side, the restricted expenditures have been revised upwards related to increased special ed costs, right? So accounting for the $750,000 that we just transferred, and revised downwards to reflect vacancy savings and a lot of budget movements. So a lot of what's going on in the restricted side of the house is schools moving around, grant money, and other specifically donated money to object codes where they need to be spent. Okay, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, obviously, later about any of that. So all of these adjustments result in a net activity, as we noted, of negative $1.9 million, which takes our general fund ending balance from $60.5 million to $51.4 million, or an available reserve level in 2018-2019 of about 10.9%. Here are the components on the screen of the $51.4 million of ending fund balance. Looking ahead, here are our second interim projections for 2019-2020 based on the governor's proposed budget for next year and predicated on current district fiscal trends. Assuming a COLA of 3.46%, which is the current statutory rate, and enrollment growth of about 0.25%, we project expenditures to outpace revenues by about $7.2 million. And you'll note that reserve levels then fall to about 9.3% next year. Taking a look at 2021, with COLA assumptions of 2.86%, that's provided by School Services of California, that's their guess. Enrollment growth of 0.25%. We project expenditures, again, outpacing revenues by another $7.2 million. So for all intents and purposes, as you know, this $7.2 million represents the district's structural deficit moving forward. Further, in 2020-21, you'll note reserve levels fall to 7.3%. So in an effort to maintain a 10% reserve level in 1920, staff is currently exploring with the PUSD team, leadership team, budget reductions amounting to approximately $2.5 million. We're looking at programmatic changes around our RTI program and around aquatics, and in some other areas, somewhere in the amount of $1.35 million. As you may recall, our district budget advisory committee, one of their recommendations last December, a year ago December, was to reduce budget standards. Those are the allocations we make to schools for supplies. They came to that recommendation after consideration of longitudinal data over, I believe it was 8-year period, looking at actuals that schools spent by grade span, as well as carryover balances at each of the schools. So they made a recommendations to reduce allocations anywhere from 15 to 40%, again, based on grade level, span level. And then we have a contracts/services audit that we are currently undergoing at the cabinet level, and we're looking at reducing those contracts and services by at least $500,000 next year. So if we achieve those levels of reduction, how will that impact our reserve levels? You look at our net activity that we just looked at, $7.2 million. That's reduced by the 2.55 of proposed reductions. That takes our revised net activity to about $4.6 million. Those would be ongoing reductions, so theoretically it would reduce our out-year net activity as well to about the same $4.6 million. You can see then in 1920 that takes our projected ending fund balance to $46.7 million as opposed to the $44 million that we noted earlier. That keeps us at 10%. Of course, the following year, we're still at 8.5%, right? Drop down. So without any changes, we'd be under our 10% target in 2020-21. We've included all the second interim budget adjustments for all our other funds. So funds 11, 12, 13, 14, 17, 21, 25, et cetera, all in your SACS reports, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about those if you have any. What's coming next? Our finance team, Mr. Tarantino's here tonight, and our new finance manager are busy working on budget development for next year. We've set up departmental and school meetings. Those will begin in the next few weeks. Associate Superintendent Osborne and her team continue with the LCAP development. That's well underway. Of course, we have the Governor's May revise coming down the pike, and we'll refine any fiscal assumptions at that point. We're not anticipating any major changes to the positive with respect to the Governor's budget, given, I think, the aggressive proposal that he shared in January with respect to K-12 funding. So this evening we're requesting board approval of a positive certification, certifying that we're able to meet our financial obligations in the current year and for the next 2 fiscal years. Obviously also approving all the budgets as outlined in all the documents. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the board?
I have a few questions. Mr. Little, the reserve level when it's quoted at 9.3%, what does that refer to? Because say you have a reserve level of $44 million, it's not 9.3% of either the revenues or expenditures. I'm looking at 1920
Right.
just by way of example.
Yeah. The reserve level is a percentage of total expenditures for the general fund, plus any transfers out. So maybe the easiest way to show you is if you look at page 2 of 10 on the multi-year report that we provided you.
Okay.
Right, and you look at section F, right, fund balance reserves. So if you take that $43.97 million ending fund balance, right, and you add to that, when we look at fund balance, we also look at what's available in Fund 17, because that's an unrestricted general fund extension. So you add to that $43.97 million, the $1.5 million that's available in Fund 17, and then you divide that by the total expenditures, up top the 415.7, and you add to that the transfers out of $1 million. So your denominator then becomes $416 million and $746,000. So if you do that math, you'll get to the 10.9% that we reflect on the page before for the current year. And you can do the same exercise for each of the out years.
So the expenditure here that we're looking at, 415, you're adding roughly another 30 million to it, $28 million.
For the 415, right? I'm looking at page 2 of 10. That's the total expenditures for the general fund. The only other thing we're adding are the transfers out. So you can see that's in section D of about $1,039,000. So you add that million to the 415, that gets the denominator of 416.7.
Okay.
If we had any other uses, right? So if you go down, other uses also in section D would be added to the denominator, but you can see that's zero in the current year.
Do the rough math that 44 million is 10% of 440 million.
Right.
So I'm looking for the.
Right.
Yeah, the
So remember, of the 44 million, we just look at what's available, right? So in this case, you're right. There's no fund balance committed or assigned. If there's fund balance committed or assigned, it's not part of the available reserves.
Oh, okay. So it's actually less. The unrestricted reserves is less than that 43.9.
Correct.
Does anyone else have any? I have a couple more questions. If no one else has other questions.
I think you can do yours.
Okay.
Bless you.
So I noticed that the revenues included the assumption of the ADA, the certain projected attendance in the outlying 2 years, and that was projected at 97%.
Mm-hmm.
However, our attendance rate hasn't been above 96.8% for 5 years. So is that overly optimistic?
I don't know that it's overly optimistic. You'll recall that we set as our target for this year next the goal of a 97% attendance rate. So you'll note also that in the current year, I think it was in our enrollment report in this board agenda, we're at 96.8%. So that's pretty darn close to 97%. We're at 96.8% for the first 6 months. Our 10-year average is 96.88%, so that's basically 98.9%, right? So we're 96.9%. So we're very close to the 97.0%. The other reason I'd say it's not overly optimistic is because 0.1% delta is worth about $350,000. So it's not a lot of money that we're talking about. So if we miss the mark by 0.1% or 0.2%, the implications are less than $1 million in a $400 million budget.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board? Mr. Zane?
A quick timeline question.
Sure.
You're seeking authorization, authorized adjustments to the budget as presented. Does that include the changes recommended on page 13? The reason I ask is I'd want to be sure that includes the programmatic changes, the budget standards reduction, et cetera. I'd want to make sure that there's
Sure.
a proper
Correct.
education and rollout of those sorts of things.
Right.
Akin to facility use charges that changed, and
Sure.
so.
By approving tonight's budget, you're basically approving us to explore budget solutions, for lack of a better word, that amount to $2.5 to $2.6 million. What they look like at the end might be different than this, but this is sort of where we're starting, right, with our work. We'll bring back to you at sort of final budget, the draft budget, in May, the first look at, with respect to the details of what that reduction looks like. But this is sort of where we're headed currently.
I think that's what, page 16, where you say June 27, when we'll do the final adoption.
Right, you'll see, correct, but on June 6th, you'll see what we're thinking in terms of the specific reductions.
Perfect, thank you.
As I understand it, we're only authorizing the adjustments that are in these forms as presented, which doesn't include any cuts so far. We'll have to approve those at a later date. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of discussion around what those are. Yeah.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Second. On a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe. Any further questions?
I just had one last comment, and that was, or question, and that's on the PowerPoint presentation on page 13, and this, just to add on to what Mr. Zane was, one of the things he was referencing. So the budget standards reduction, and I think I've brought this up before, it has perplexed me because I've been at schools and we've heard school community members lament the lack of funding for supplies or for programs. And a specific example is, the 40-year head coach of track and field at Mount Carmel, Mr. McClanahan, talked about how many years ago the allotment for his program was 3 times what he gets, or he got before retirement, now, which was around $300, and that it used to be, way back when, even with inflation, it used to be closer to $1,000. So why, it just puzzles me then why this money would sit dormant and not be used to properly fund these programs, and the parents are being told these programs aren't being provided for, so the parents have to fundraise like crazy and do sponsorship packages and all that stuff and spend, countless weekends flipping burgers and doing whatever else to raise money so the students can have these sports programs. So why is the money just sitting there in an account and not being used?
That's a question that we've had in conversations around in cabinet as well too, because what we noticed, and I think in the DBAC committee's research as they went into deep diving into the data, is that they found from how many years ago when they made the cuts, like 10 years ago? About 10 years ago when they made the big cuts and then they restored back the money, they found that there was no difference in spending nor no difference in what the ask was to parents as far as donations go. So everything stayed the same. And so I think based on that research and evaluation is that why the DBAC committee came up with the recommendation of making some cuts to the allocations, not to as severe as 10 years ago, but maybe to a closer amount. In the meantime, what we did is we did do a survey with our site principals. What we found is that many times, like, the teachers don't know at their level what was allocated, and then the principals may not have communicated that to their staff, or teachers may not know how their budget is allocated or how the principal has allocated it out as far as what they spend on a school campus. And it may be a case where some of the principals don't know what their budgets are. And so I know that Ms. Osborne and her staff have been working with the principals and talking about that and talking about what those impacts look like if these budget standard reductions are being made. So we are still in the process of doing some of that investigation and having those conversations.
Can I add, and there is a distinction to be made between allocations made for sports programs and instructional supplies, right? So you'll recall prior to 10 years ago, we had a lot of money. K-12s had money for sports programs. But when the recession hit, a lot of that funding went away, and a lot of the discretionary, for lack of a better term, use of those funds was constrained. So this allocation is really just meant to be for instructional supplies. It's not meant to fund an athletic program.
Dr. Phelps, is the research you just referred to separate and distinct from what PFT, I think, just recently has done on this matter? And if it is or isn't, is that also going to be taken into consideration when you come back with further recommendations on this item?
Yeah, PFT conducted their own separate survey with their teachers, and I believe when we analyzed the results, about 50% of them didn't even know that there was a site allocation, and a lot of them didn't even know what it was or why it was there. And so we're engaged in other conversations with PFT representation to talk about that and talk about what is the actual impact. And so, we're still in that process. And then talking to leadership is a separate conversation that our staff is having.
I appreciate that because I've asked for 4 years ever since we gave it back when we upped it back to the pre-recession levels. I've asked for some kind of an accounting on what do sites spend this on. We've never received that. So I'm looking forward to hearing what that is for the first time. So thanks very much. I think that'll help us a lot decide whether we can actually make that $700,000 cut there or not. So thank you for that.
Yeah, so I think these are proposed cuts. That's not what we're approving in this budget. And at the current moment, we have a motion from Mr. Zane and a second from Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? And Mr. Schwartz, your
Aye.
Preferential vote? Motion carries 6-0. That brings us to item 7.2, which is, let me get to the green sheet. Award a contract resulting from request for proposal number 2019-09P, Facilities Master Plan Service to PBK Architecture. Mr. Little.
Yes, thank you, President Patel. As you know, it's been many years since the district has embarked upon long-range facility master planning work. The last plan that we could find was dated 1999-2000, although we have conducted some facility needs assessments since then. At last month's meeting, we presented the results of our facilities condition assessment and concluded that in 4 years' time, the majority of our schools would be in poor condition when compared against industry standards. So we are excited at the prospect of collaboratively creating a new vision for the district schools for the future and to address imminent facilities needs. And to this end, staff recommends that the district engage the services of PBK architectural firm to partner with PUSD and our team to create a comprehensive facility master plan that encompasses the needs of our district's educational programs, addresses school physical safety and security needs, and considers the needs of our support services such as food and nutrition and transportation. We have Mr. Doug Patterson from PBK this evening. Thank you for coming. Once approved, we envision the work beginning immediately this month and culminating in a final report to the board and the public in January of 2020. The estimated cost is about $550,000 spread out over 3 funds, as you note on the green sheet.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Are there any questions? Then I'd like to request a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
On a motion by Ms. Couvret, second by Mr. Zane. There's no further discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And Mr. Schwartz? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Item 7.3, approve the 6th project agreement with K-12 Public Schools and Community Colleges Facility Authority for facility planning and construction support services, Mesa Verde Middle School HVAC project. Mr. Little.
Yes, thank you, President Patel. Agenda item 7.3 seeks the board's approval to utilize the County Office of Ed's FAC JPA, Facilities JPA, to bid and to manage a large HVAC chiller project at Mesa Verde Middle School. The project description is noted in detail on the green sheet. We would like to note that the fiscal impact is a high-level estimate at this point. There may be some other funds that we can devote to this work if it turns out that the bids come in higher than anticipated. It's quite a large project from my understanding. Director Koster could certainly speak to the details if you're interested. But it's work that has needed to be done for some time now. You can see that we're leveraging our Prop 39 dollars, our energy efficiency dollars, so that we can create more efficient systems and save on electric costs as well.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Are there any questions? Can I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
On a motion by Mr. Zane, second by O'Connor Ratcliffe. Mr. Schwartz, do you have a preferential vote? Aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 7.4, approve resolution number 24-19 entitled Allocation of the State School Facilities Program Reimbursement Funds. Mr. Little.
Thank you, President Patel. As you know, the district anticipates a reimbursement from the state's school facility program of nearly $27.7 million once the next series of Prop 51 bonds are sold. You'll recall that Prop 51 was approved by California voters in 2016, and the new governor's commitment is to issue bonds on a faster schedule than the prior governor, which we appreciate. And so once the next series is sold, we anticipate being reimbursed within the next few months. Last Tuesday, March 5th, the district held a community meeting to share more about the school facility program and how it works. This evening, we're going to share a few slides from that informational meeting, including staff's recommendation for the use of these reimbursement funds. So we mentioned, obviously, with the passing of Prop 51 that we are anticipating the proceeds, and then the question becomes, how can these proceeds be used? Legally, these funds can be used for any of these three purposes pursuant to the CCRs. So they can be used for any high priority capital outlay expenditures as determined by the board per Ed Code section 17070. They can be used for purposes delineated in the original bond language, which in this case was the construction of D39, which in this case is done and complete, we're happy to say. And the third way that the reimbursement can be used is to retire local debt associated with those bonds. Further sort of informing the application of these funds are particular languages in any of the foundational CFD documents. So we just included one here, which is from CFD 14, one of the CFDs that contributed to the construction of D39. And you can see in its mitigation agreement, it states that all state funds received by the district with respect to the school facilities program allocated to the development within CFD 14 shall be retained by and credited to the district and be utilized to finance school facilities. And the reason for this language is really about sort of how we've applied these reimbursements for the past 20 years. So over the past 20 years, the district has received approximately $290 million of state reimbursements from the school facility program. And we have applied 100% of these refunds, these reimbursements, all $290 million to high priority capital outlay projects. More specifically, given the enrollment growth that the district has experienced over the past 20 years, we've wisely invested those funds to build capacity and add seats to serve our students and our growing student population by building new schools. So if you just look at the beginning of the cycle, we get a reimbursement of state funds. In this case, we applied it to build Stone Ranch, right? So there's some match, whether it's 60-40 or 50-50. We build Stone Ranch, and then after it's done, we get a reimbursement. We took that reimbursement and used it to help fund the construction of Oak Valley. And then we took Oak Valley's reimbursement, which we leveraged, and took that and applied it to the construction of Monterey Ridge, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so then from Monterey, we went to Del Sur. We built Del Sur Elementary School. We received a reimbursement. That state reimbursement we applied to the construction of Willow Grove, and 2 of those schools helped fund the construction of Del Norte High School. So again, this is just how we've been leveraging state dollars, and this is what any smart school district does, right? I mean, that's the way to keep propagating the state's share and sort of partnership to meet the needs of a growing school district. So what's changed is that if not ended, the cycle has certainly slowed, right? So we're not in enrollment growth anymore, right? So we're pretty much flattening out as the second interim projections and the multi-year projections show. And so our needs have changed. No longer really do we need to add seats, although there's a couple bubble schools and a bubble areas which we can apply this money to, and we would in our recommendation. But we're to a point where we really have the issue of facility dilapidation, right? So no longer do we need to build schools, but we do have urgent facility needs, as you know, and I have a long list of here provided by Director Coster, which we go through, to support the capital needs at the schools, particularly in Poway High, RB High, the older schools that weren't the beneficiaries of the last bond and modernization work related to that. So our recommendation, and we've delineated our recommendation based on the taxpayer base in the district. So we know that about 45% of our taxpayers live in CFDs that supported the work at D39, and the other 55% are non-CFDs. So we're recommending that the bulk of the reimbursement go to high priority capital needs. And you'll note on the green sheet, I didn't put it here in the slides, but there's some cut out for non-CFD schools, 15 plus million. And then a cutout for CFD schools, about $6.2 million. So those would go to meet the high priority projects such as the locker room at Poway High, the modular and portable challenges at RB High, et cetera, et cetera. And then there are some obviously needs at our CFD schools. As you know, the CFD funds, while what's the word I want? While we have quite a bit of CFD resources, they can't be utilized for repairs and renovations and sort of the general upkeep and deferred maintenance that those schools are now and soon to be experiencing. So we've set aside in our recommendation $6.2 million to address those issues. On this slide, number 2 and number 3 are really kind of the same thing. So we would recommend allocating $6.2 million to retire local bond debt. And by doing that, we would fully utilize the available seats at D39 that are currently not being utilized and can't be utilized based on our own self-imposed restrictions based on the pro rata share of the funding by the CFDs. That's a long way of saying if we offset some debt, we can free up some seats for students to attend D39 district-wide students, about 100-ish. And we can also free up some available seats for those CFDs that have limits or maximums on grade level participation at D39 enrollment. And that would be about, I think, 128 seats. So we'd free up about 230 seats that currently are not being occupied. So current enrollment of the school is about 1150, I want to say. 1134, thank you. And we know the capacity is about 1430. So there's room, and our recommendation would get more students there soon. So that's our recommendation. We'd be happy to answer any questions at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Are there any questions from the board? Ms. Beatty?
Thank you, Mr. Little. So to clarify, is there the reimbursement funds, the 3 different allowable uses, are we hanging our hat on number 2 based on the mitigation agreements? Is that correct, as opposed to 3, which refers to education code from a legal standpoint? The education code 17070.
You're looking at the 1, 2, 3 on the front of the green sheet, right?
Yes.
Yes. So
And it was
we
all-
would be, obviously, our recommendation involves number 1, so retiring some of the local bonds pursuant to California Code of Regulations, right, 1859.90, as well as number 3, right, to your point, which is pursuant to Ed Code. So we'd be utilizing those 2 options.
Well, I think I would dispute that we can do it under the Ed Code because the Ed Code reads under C. Well, A is just states this is Ed Code 17070.63. A says the total funding provided under this chapter shall constitute the state's full and final contribution to the project, and it goes on. As a condition of receipt of the funds, the district shall certify the grant amount combined with local funds shall be sufficient to complete the construction project. Then B says any funds provided under this chapter may not be counted towards the local match for receipt of funds under any other article under this chapter. So that doesn't pertain. And then C is really the enabling piece, and it says any savings achieved by the district's efficient and prudent expenditure of these funds shall be retained by the district and the county fund for expenditure by the district for other high priority capital outlay purposes. And we don't fit within those parameters. This all-in $81 million construction of D39C, we didn't realize savings from efficient and prudent expenditures that would then be allowed for high priority projects. So it seems like then the only under the Code of Regulations, the only section that would allow us to use these funds for other than this construction project would be permitted by the local bond. And you had referenced the language in the mitigation agreements. I see the permitted uses being granted in the resolution of formation because that's the covenant between the district and the CFD homeowners, as opposed to the mitigation agreement, which is the agreement between the district and the landowner of undeveloped land prior to the resolution of formation, which the Melrose statute spells out that the only documents that can delineate permitted uses are the resolution of intention and the resolution of formation, and they're usually mirror images of each other. So given that, I would feel more comfortable knowing that the resolution of formation had this language that stated that any state reimbursement matching funds were allowed to be kept by the district, and that the district, the term district, was referring to the school district, because a lot of the language in the statute refers to the district with regard to community facilities district and not school district. So I just want to make sure that we're on solid ground legally before moving forward.
Understood.
On this.
Thank you. As you know, we've been anticipating this reimbursement for quite some time. So we've had numerous conversations with legal counsel with respect to the applicability of both Ed Code and the CCR section. I think previously, I think we've shared with the board at least twice legal opinion from our current bond counsel with respect to the use of these funds and the fact that he felt that this recommendation was within the parameters of the law.
Yes, and I do have Warren Diven from Best and Kriegers. I do have his legal memo on that. He's not clear on that point. He just delineates these are the permitted uses, just like it's done in the green sheet with the 3 permitted uses according to the California Code of Regulations, the retiring for local bonds, the permitted by the local bonds, and the reference to high priority projects as outlined by Education Code 17070. He never then expounds on that to describe exactly what the limitations are of those each three of those allowances. So I would say he's ambiguous on that.
In conversations with legal counsel, we asked him for further clarification with respect to the third point, the high priority capital outlay projects, and his response was primarily that these are capital projects that the board identifies as high priority, and that was what was required by statute, and that it was an appropriate use of these funds.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Any further questions? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Right, on a motion by O'Connor Ratcliffe, second by Mr. Zane. And do we have a preferential vote for Mr. Schwartz? Aye. Rest of the board, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 5-1.
Thank you.
That brings us to agenda item 7.5. Approve joint use agreement with the City of Poway for cooperative facilities use and maintenance of the gymnasium at Twin Peaks and Meadowbrook Middle Schools and the turf fields at Meadowbrook Middle, Valley Elementary, and Poway High School. Mr. Little.
Yes, thank you, President Patel. This evening, we're pleased to bring forward the renewal of our joint use agreement with the City of Poway. The agreement covers the use of the gymnasiums, as you noted, at Twin Peaks and Meadowbrook Middle Schools, as well as the turf fields at Valley Elementary, Meadowbrook Middle School, and Poway High Schools. We'd like to acknowledge and thank the City of Poway staff who worked very collaboratively over the past year with us to get this done. And in fact, Brenda Sylvia is here this evening, the Director of Community Services for the City of Poway. And I'd also like to thank Director Coster for his leadership in this area and getting an agreement done that we feel is both fair and equitable to both parties. So if there are any questions, I'm certainly Director Coster would be willing to answer them. Otherwise, we seek approval of the new JUA.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Are there any questions?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. On a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Ms. Couvrette, is there any further discussion?
Just another quick thank you. This looks so good, and can we do this with the City of San Diego now?
Agreed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Was that a preferential yes? That's what I saw. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And that brings us to the information item 7.6. Proposed lighted soccer field improvement project at Del Norte High School. Mr. Little.
Yes, thank you, President Patel. At the February 14th, 2019 Board of Education meeting, representatives of the Mind Soccer Foundation presented the board with a request to work collaboratively with the district to establish a joint venture agreement to renovate Del Norte High School's 3 lower soccer fields. MSF's vision is to develop a high-level local youth soccer academy in the area that would provide opportunities for the Poway community. The project, were it eventually approved, would be subject to the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. As you know, CEQA requires that state and local agencies identify any significant environmental impacts and then plan and work to mitigate these. The environmental review imposes both procedural and substantive requirements. At a minimum, an initial review of the project and its environmental effects must be conducted. Depending on the potential effects and findings, a further, more substantial review may be conducted or required in the form of an environmental impact report, EIR, hence our estimated range of the costs. These fees would be split 50-50 between the district and MSF. This evening, we seek the board's approval to begin the CEQA process. I'm sorry, we seek your direction. It's just information.
It's just
so
an information
feedback,
item.
thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Are there any questions on this information item? All right, thank you. That brings us to agenda item 8.0, Learning Support Services. Our first item is 8.1, Ratification of Stipulated Agreements for Student Expulsion. Ms. Osborne.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight we bring forward 4 stipulated agreements for board approval.
Thank you. We'll take case number 2018-2019.10 first. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second. On a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Case number 2018-2019.11. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second. A motion by Mr. Zane, second by Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries 5-0. Case number 2018-2019.12. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second. And a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Case number 2018-2019.13. Motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second. And a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We are now on agenda item 8.2, ratification of enforced expulsions. Ms. Osborne.
Thank you, Dr. Patel. Tonight we bring forward 1 enforced expulsion for board approval.
Thank you. This is case number 2018-2019.05.
Motion to approve.
Second. And a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 8.3, presentation of recommended visual and performing arts, VAPA strategic plan. And first we have a public comment.
Yes, Ms. Janet Latang.
Good evening again, Superintendent Kim Phelps, Superintendent's Council and Trustees. I'm excited to hear the upcoming presentation from the VAPA Strategic Planning Committee. As the California Legislature has proclaimed March 2019 to be Arts Education Month, before we listen to the VAPA presentation, I would like to share the following from the SCR 24 proclamation text, which I think is pertinent to tonight's presentation. I handed out to the board. This measure would proclaim March 2019 to be Arts Education Month and would encourage all elected officials to participate with their educational communities in celebrating the arts. I'm going to leave out the whereas. Arts education, which includes dance, music, theater, and visual arts, is an essential and integral part of basic education for all pupils in pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, and grades 1 to 12 inclusive. The arts are crucial to achieving a state educational policy that is devoted to the teaching of basic academic skills and lifelong learning capacities with the goal of truly preparing all children for success after high school regardless of age, gender, economic status, physical ability, or learning ability. Whereas a systematic, substantive, and sequential visual and performing arts curriculum addresses and develops ways of thinking, questioning, expression, and learning that complement learning in other core subjects, but that is unique in what it has to offer. Whereas pupils benefit from arts learning in the areas of cultural understanding, readiness for learning and creative thinking, cognitive outcomes, emotional intelligence and expression, social interaction and collaboration, and preparation for the workplace and lifelong learning. And arts education in California is mandated for pupils in grades 1 through 12 inclusive by sections 51210 and 51220 of the Education Code. The arts are recognized as part of a quality education, and the University of California and California State University have instituted a policy that includes visual and performing arts as a college prep subject for all high school pupils wishing to enter the state's institution of higher education. The state of California, through the local control funding formula, has provided flexibility for local educational agencies to target growing resources towards arts education. And it is the intent of the legislature that this funding help implement a comprehensive vision for the arts education at the local level to ensure that every pupil in the state benefits from this investment. This funding is the first step in investing in quality visual and performing arts programs for the California pupils. And many national state professional arts and Arts Education Associations hold celebrations in the month of March, giving California schools a unique opportunity to focus on the value of the arts for all pupils, foster cross-cultural understanding, give recognitions to the state's outstanding young artists, and enhance public support for this essential part of the curriculum. I hope you guys, I think they wrote that well. I couldn't say it better myself, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Osborne.
Thank you. Tonight we are excited to present to the board the recommended Visual and Performing Arts Strategic Plan. And at this time I would like to invite any VAPA committee members in the audience to please stand and be recognized. Stand up. We are grateful for your commitment to the visual and performing arts on behalf of our students. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Executive Director Kimberly Renz, who's been a member of the committee, and she will present an overview of the Visual and Performing Arts Strategic Plan. Your microphone.
Oh, the microphone. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, good. This isn't a Verizon commercial. This is VAPA. All right, so in fall, we came forward and shared with you some of the information regarding our VAPA committee work. And tonight, I'm very excited to be sharing with you some specific information regarding the committee's recommendations. Now, I know that you've had the opportunity to see our executive summary as well as the comprehensive plan. So tonight, I'm going to be giving you a balcony view, so to speak, around the recommendations, our focus areas, and then what might be some action steps for year one. Okay. So via our LCAP Parent Community Forum process over the past few years, a pattern emerged from parent feedback in terms of a desire to provide our students with additional VAPA learning opportunities. So a committee was developed which aligns with LCAP goal number 1. And the VAPA committee's purpose was to create a visionary plan for Poway Unified School District that would provide a high-quality, comprehensive, standards-based education for all students. We had a fantastic committee that was representative of cross-section of stakeholders in our district, including district and pre-K administrators, visual performing art teachers, general classroom teachers, parents, students, and some of them came tonight, so I appreciate that as well. Another person who is going to be helping me tonight present is Beth Parasick, who did a tremendous amount of work on the committee, and unfortunately she's home sick, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention her as well. We worked in collaboration with the California Arts Project and the San Diego County Office of Education, who facilitated our process. So our process consisted of reviewing research, identifying some focus areas, coming up and determining what our mission and vision statements were. Then we also conducted a couple of community forums where we got feedback from our community regarding our focus areas, and then we went to work to create our comprehensive plan. So we had a vision, and the committee's vision is to grow confident and creative students through exploration and expression of the arts. We also felt it was important to develop a mission statement, and that mission statement really was around Poway Unified School District is dedicated to promoting visual and performing arts as part of a well-rounded education by providing all students with a high-quality, relevant, equitable, and sequential standards-based arts education in the 5 VAPA disciplines: dance, media arts, music, theater, and the visual arts. We identified 5 specific focus areas to guide our work. The first one is curriculum and instruction, leadership and professional learning, human and physical resources, community and culture, and equity and access. So as you take a look at each plan is divided into each focus statement. Then each focus statement has around 2 or 3 goals per statement with implementation steps. And those implementation steps are broken down into a 5-year timeline with associated costs very associated with them and very estimated. And then also an area of person responsible. We're also going to be including within the plan some progress monitoring as well. So we'll be having some committee work around taking a look at our goals, looking at our action steps, and managing and seeing how we're doing on the plan itself. So I'd like to right now go through each of the 5 focus areas and just give a general overview of what the goals are, and then what year 1 actions might look like for next year. So our professional, so the first area of focus is curriculum and instruction, and 3 goals have been identified to achieve this over the course of 5 years. They include developing a TK-12 scope and sequence, implementing a articulated arts curriculum, and then offering all 5 art disciplines at the schools. Next year, it would be year 1 action step recommendation is to investigate and unpack the new California art standards. Also, the focus was recommended that we could focus in on our exploration teachers and the thinking around ways in which we could support them and provide professional learning to implement the arts through our exploration program. Professional learning and leadership. Professional learning will focus on designing professional learning for all 5 disciplines, as well as cultivating leadership within our system to support and strengthen VAPA. Year 1 action steps might include providing and evaluating our current professional learning opportunities. Like I've shared earlier, some of the work has already begun with our exploration teachers. We're collaborating with the California Arts Project, and they have been very supportive in working with our teachers in the area of visual arts and theater. So currently, our students have experienced theater, and I believe actually less than 14 will begin a 3 or 4-week unit on visual arts. We're continuing to hope to continue that collaboration next year with a focus on music and dance. The next is human and physical resources. Human and physical resource goals focus on allocating funds to employ highly qualified art educators and to ensure equitable facilities, equipment, materials, and curriculum. The recommendation of the team is to hire a VAPA coordinator and evaluate all human and physical resources and identify areas of need. These are recommendations from the committee. However, LSS staff is currently reviewing this based on budget constraints, some of which we heard of tonight, and considering how we might use existing staff to support our goals. Culture and community. This goal focuses on promoting and celebrating the arts program in Poway Unified School District, working collaboratively with art organizations and artists to strengthen partnerships with district families. Year 1 action recommendation is to identify and promote site and district-wide collaborative events, such as designated webpage with all upcoming performances and art events happening throughout the year. We've been fortunate enough to have community members come every month to share with us where we can find our amazing artists. So we want to continue to promote that by putting it in a place for all families to be able to go and view and experience our fine arts within our district. And finally is equity and access. And equity and access is focused on providing students a consistent VAPA experience in all 5 disciplines. We want to continue to think about this as we create these experiences, as we continue to create conditions and cultures for world-class learners. I know that was an overview of a very comprehensive plan that you saw. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Renz.
Not a question per se, more just kudos and compliments to all those involved. This is quite comprehensive, clearly very thoughtful and articulate, and a lot of work. I'm curious, and just as a quick aside, thank you to Ms. Letang for the very comprehensive schedule that was, I can't even imagine the time it took to put that together, that Ms. Letang emailed to the whole board. But just out of curiosity, how many other districts, just say beginning here in San Diego County, to your knowledge, K through 12, have this sort of comprehensive VAPA plan, strategic plan?
I would believe there's probably, I know 2 in particular, probably 3 or 4, 3 to 5, I would say. There was a project that happened over the course of the past couple of years where there was some grant funding, and so I know that Escondido Union Vista Unified, as well as Chula Vista Elementary, collaborating with the California Arts Project. And so there are, I would say, about 5-ish districts who currently have a comprehensive plan.
This is our first.
This
is great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Good job.
you.
Ms. Biddy?
So I had a question. Thank you for all your work and all the committee members' hours on this. You had mentioned that one, for lack of a better term, portal through which we would do some of these art programs is exploration. And one of my concerns is that exploration has turned into kind of all things to all people. I was here at the beginning when we actually first conceived of and then approved the program as a program for VAPA and also to meet our legal compliance with regard to mandated elementary school PE hours. And then it sort of morphed into, let's do some science, and let's do some computer literacy, let's do some career technical stuff, and then, there are these add-ons. And so one concern is that exploration lacks enough focus to provide meaningful visual and performing arts programs. And then sort of connected with that is this tension that exists between some of these parent-funded programs where they're providing art teachers and art programs, and then and exploration. So I was just wondering if you could speak to that.
Yes, I'd be happy to speak to that. I work very closely with the exploration program, and we have, over the course of 3 years, really heard a variety of comments and feedback regarding the instruction that we are providing to students on a regular basis. And one of the things that, and we've heard as we have developed over time, we've become very focused and very deliberate in our instruction. So we are focusing on every session of exploration includes 53 minutes of PE, high vigorous physical activity aligned to the standards of the physical education standards. We've also, in fact, narrowed down exploration to cover visual performing arts, and then we have science, and we do actually have a day of coding as well to celebrate to get our kids engaged in coding, so that every child has access to coding. As we develop that curriculum, we're very, very strategic. We pull out the standards, and we are ensuring that they're aligned to the standards, as well as we're working with the rigor matrix, where we're looking at it comes in different content areas. The Hess rigor matrix, where it comes in science and social studies and English language arts and math, and we actually lay our lessons against that matrix to ensure that they are indeed rigorous. So again, over the course of time, we are continuously refining our exploration program. We want it to be purposeful, and we want it to not be a hodgepodge, but we want to ensure that all first graders will get a certain experience in visual performing arts and in science, STEM activities, and as well as PE, and all the way up, TK actually, through 5th grade. So I'm glad you brought up that point so that we could speak to the deliberateness of we're being very focused on the content that we're delivering in exploration. So thank you for that.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to note that I'm really pleased that we have a plan. Every time you look at a plan like this, though, in isolation, it feels very slow. Oh, this is so deliberate. Can we move this faster? And I understand it takes time, but I think realizing this is not in isolation, we're already doing a lot of things at our schools, and this plan is going to make sure that all of our kids at all of our schools have the opportunities. And I get that. I'm still impatient, but I love that it's here. I love that it's laid out. I hope we can move it along a little faster. If things go faster, let's go, go, go. I'm always the impatient one.
And well, actually, I was a little impatient too, so we started early. We've already started with VAPA this year. With, okay, let's, let's bring Courtney back now while we're still putting final polish on the plan, and let's get exploration going, because that was a direction that I heard from last year that was important. So I'm with you. We're going to keep moving
As
it.
you're talking about it, I'm going, okay, calm down. We're already doing a lot of this
I know.
at some sites,
That's right.
so it's not like we're starting from zero.
Right. Go slow
So,
to go
yeah,
fast.
so
I know
thank
sometimes
you.
it's hard.
Thank you, though.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just end with thank you for all this work. I know the community has really wanted this for a very long time, and I'm happy that we're finally giving some attention to this. Thank you for all this good work. And I'm looking forward to hearing updates along the way. There are some things that have been dangling in my head I'm curious about, like what will the roles of some of our academies and the offerings that they have be in the equity and access piece. Perhaps what can we do to bring that into all of our middle schools as an opportunity for multiple electives, things like that. I know these are big pie in the sky. I can say pie today. Pie in the sky wishes, right? But they are there, and our community is also very interested and excited about them. But thank you, and I look forward to seeing the progress.
Thank you. And again, I just want to echo Carol Osborne's words about our committee. It was comprehensive, and they did tremendous work. So thank you, committee, for sitting behind us, and many more who aren't here, who are probably watching us on TV right now. So, thank you.
All right, if there are no further questions, we will move on to the next agenda item, which is item 8.4.
Thank you, Dr. Patel.
Approval of Resolution 3129 entitled Support for Civic Learning. Ms. Osborne.
Thank you. As you know, Poway Unified strives to empower students to engage in democratic processes and have a voice not only in what's happening on their campuses, but in the world around them. We present this civic learning resolution for board approval to demonstrate our commitment to prepare all students to be responsible, knowledgeable citizens ready for college, career, and civic life.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion to approve, but before I do so, just quickly thank Ms. Osborne and staff for pulling this together. I think it was probably, if I remember correctly, the December timeframe where this was first put out there for consideration. I appreciate the hard work and several months that went into making sure that each paragraph was well thought out. So thank you for this. I think it's important. Thank you.
Thank you. Second. All right, on a motion to approve by Mr. Zane, second by Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe, with a preferential vote. Aye for Mr. Schwartz, and the rest of the board, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And then we have action item 8.5, approval of Resolution 34-2019 entitled Support for Climate Literacy and Leadership. Ms. Osborne.
Thank you. In 2015, the California Department of Education issued the Blueprint for Environmental Literacy due to the critical environmental concerns that face California and to support students with opportunities to think deeply about how to build a future that is sustainable, healthy, prosperous, and equitable. In 2016, California adopted the Next Generation Science Standards, which foster investigations and understanding of scientific concepts and processes. Tonight, we present this resolution, Support for Climate Literacy and Leadership, for board approval, and to reflect our commitment to developing students that are curious about their environment and committed to learning about the issues and ways to reduce human impact on the environment.
Thank you, Ms. Osborne. And I would like to add thank you very much for working on this. This is a very important issue right now with students and their future and our future as well. We look to our students sometimes for leadership on these things, but I think it's great that the district is showing leadership as well. With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
With a motion by Darshana Patel, second by Mr. Zane. Oh, and we do have one discussion.
Just one comment. I note that in our last one on civic engagement, we're going to encourage we're going to encourage ourselves to our district to go for that Civic Learning Award for California Public Schools. There's a Green Ribbon Schools Award that I think we should encourage all our schools to seek as well, just to go with this one.
That's all. Do you want to include that as an amendment?
No, I'm just going to throw it out there. We've had lots of time to consider this one, too. I'm too little too late, but thought I'd throw it out.
Thank you. So with motion by Dr. Patel, second by Mr. Zane, do we have a preferential vote from aye from Mr. Schwartz? And the rest of the board, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And we have a first reading, agenda item 8.6, Proposed adoption of high school supplemental textbooks. First reading, Ms. Osborne.
This item is a first reading of supplemental nonfiction texts that are used in AP Biology at Westview High School. These are aligned to the California standards, and due to having more than 10 copies of a single title, they need to be reviewed by the board as supplemental text for the course. This is a first reading.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Osborne? All right. Thank you. Brings us to item 8.7, proposed adoption of middle school science textbooks, first reading. Ms. Osborne?
We are pleased to bring forward the recommendations for new textbooks and instructional materials for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science. The recommendations are a result of the review process, which included teachers meeting with publishers, identifying materials to pilot in classrooms, and then coming together to reach consensus about the adoption. 6th and 7th grade are recommending Teachers Curriculum Institute's materials. 8th grade is recommending subscriptions to the same materials in order to use common assessments. And 8th grade is also recommending open educational resources for using the CK-12 materials for instruction. This item is a first reading.
Thank you, Ms. Osborne. Are there any comments, questions? I will say I did look at the link of the online materials, and wow, there is a lot of information available to our teachers. I dug through some of them, looked at the different ranges in the curriculum, the your videos and the texts and the readings. It's all pretty impressive. It's a broad collection. Thank you. And that brings us to agenda item 10.0, which is Technology and Innovation, item 10.1, approval of revised board policy 4040, employee use of technology. Dr. Burks.
Thank you, Madam President. Our board policy on employee use of technology was adopted last March. Tonight, we bring forward an update to this policy that pertains to social media and online platforms. We are recommending that the board approve the revision to board policy 4040 on employee use of technology.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
On a motion by Mr. Zane and a second by Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe, is there board preferential? Aye for Mr. Schwartz. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Agenda item 10.2, which is an information item, PUSD Digital Social Media Employee Best Practices. Dr. Burks.
Thank you, President Patel. PUSD recognizes the importance of using electronic resources and media as a tool to connect and share information with our stakeholders and to further the vision and mission of college and career readiness for all students. In collaboration with PFT and PSEA, we have established a set of best practices for employees when using digital and social media. In the upcoming weeks, we'll be sharing these best practices with staff, and training modules will be created for members of PSEA, PFT, and APSM. They will also become part of the new employee onboarding process. We would like to acknowledge and thank members of PSEA, PFT, Personnel Support Services, and Christine Peck for their collaborative efforts in establishing these digital and social media employee best practices.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Mr. Schwartz?
So I just have a really fast question. If staff are now, since we're kind of recognizing that staff are able to use social media in the classroom, or when this may be a little bit off, but when will this Wi-Fi, a part of the school district, be allowed to use student social media platforms for educational purposes?
Help me clarify what you're asking.
So, at least at the for high school level, you're allowed to use your cellular device or internet. You have internet access, but you cannot access certain social media websites for any reason because it's blocked. I was wondering if that was going to be open at any point now that we're kind of recognizing social media as a learning platform in a sense. I was wondering if that was accessible or not.
Great question. I think those are things that we're still looking at exploring and developing as we move forward.
Yeah, parents can't use it either. That brings us, thank you. Are there any other questions? We'll move on to agenda item 11.0. Dr. Phelps? Oh, there's nothing there? And we have board reports. Board member reports. We'll start at the end. Mr. Schwartz, I'll give you a second.
Hello, Poway Unified. It's been an amazing month for a variety of reasons. I want to start off by sharing out of the February SSAC Superintendent Student Advisory Council meeting. Unfortunately, I was absent due to family matters. However, I heard so many great things about the meeting from my peers. It was that amazing that students were talking about it outside of the SSAC meeting. However, I heard so many great things about the meeting from my peers. SSAC was joined by Dr. Phelps and Mr. Little to discuss school district funding, how we get our money and how is it spent, etc. Obviously, finances play an essential part in any school district, so it was very interesting to get a more in-depth knowledge about how our district uses and receives our funds. I was also lucky enough to attend the Poway Unified School District Recognition Dinner. I met so many fantastic educators and staff and was reminded how truly deserving these individuals are of recognition. Some of the highlights include Ms. Wu's amazing speech, getting a picture with all 3 of my elementary school principals. I just know that a few of them were in the audience. The delicious food, and the impromptu MC, Dr. Phelps. Seeing all of the PUSD staff recognized inspired me to reconnect with my roots and meet with some of the most influential past teachers that I've had. Some of you may know the outstanding former County Teacher of the Year, Ms. Julie Harris. Since 4th grade, Ms. Harris has been an inspiration to me, teaching me not only the basics of learning, but critical life values. I also met with my former ASB director, Mr. Anella. He too taught me many skills that I still use today. To say the least, it was such a pleasure to see both of them again so many years later. What I'd like to emphasize is the impact teachers have on so many lives. Part of the reason why I love being involved in PUSD so much is due to everything PUSD has given me. In short, I'd like to personally say thank you to all the staff, a part of this wonderful district. Your work is beyond important and beyond impactful. Although I do not have too much to share this month, I have plenty occurring next month, in which I look forward to sharing my experiences with you all. As always, thank you for this opportunity, and please feel free to contact me at any time with your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Mr. Zane?
Thank you. Yes, similarly, wasn't quite as busy this past month as it was the previous. Perhaps the winter break in there was owing to that. As for my part, had a few things I took part in the month of February. First, I'm grateful it was covered in the local newspaper and speaking to a group in Rancho Bernardo regarding the Youth in Transition program, which focuses on our homeless youth in the district. Second, had the privilege, the opportunity, as I know some fellow board members did separately, to tour Rancho Bernardo High School with Jeff Carpenter to see what, frankly, just can be described as nothing short of the deteriorating facilities at that location, many of which are actually included on the list of high priority items that we discussed previously this evening. So I think I am not alone in looking forward to seeing some of those improvements made at Rancho Bernardo High School. On February 27th, I joined fellow trustees and Superintendent Phelps in recognizing the Certificated Employees of the Year with a series of surprise presentations. Congratulations again to Deborah Seibert, bus driver for transportation, Alice Burge with the Student Services Assistant for Adobe Bluffs Elementary School, and Vicki Norris, the Office Specialist in Facilities Maintenance and Operations. That was a lot of fun that morning. The next day, also attended the PUSD recognition dinner in Rancho Bernardo. A highlight of my evening was taking a photo with Mr. Schwartz. Surprised you didn't mention that in your... I don't know what happened there. On March 2nd, it was a lot of fun attending a volleyball tournament in La Jolla High School, where I saw not just my son's school participate, but it was a pleasant surprise to also see Rancho Bernardo, Poway High School, and Del Norte High School participating in the tournament as well as Mount Carmel. On March 5th, it was mentioned earlier, I was here with Dr. Patel and Ms. Couvrette attending the community forum presentation on CFDs in the district. The next evening, a very gluttonous evening at Wings and Things for a fundraiser for, it looked like not just Mount Carmel volleyball, but also there was a Rancho Bernardo athletic team there as well, using the site for a fundraiser. The Atomic Hot Wings are, well, they're pretty hot. They're great. And then just this morning, it was a lot of fun attending Terrific Thursday at Sunset Hills Elementary School. Lastly, I just want to close by saying it's a very important weekend coming up here, and I just want to wish everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day. Sláinte.
Thank you, Mr. Zane. Ms. Beatty.
I simply want to echo everyone's gratitude for Ms. Latang's exhaustive, comprehensive work in putting together all of the schools' performances for the duration of the year. And I think out of respect for all of that hard work, I would request that we have that information accessible on our district website. And going forward, I do think it's a proper suggestion that we have the staff create this sort of thing, and as Ms. Latang had mentioned, make sure that there's input from all of the schools to make sure we've got the information, the dates are accurate, and that we're not leaving out any of the vital programs. So a very sincere thank you for all that hard work.
Thank you, Ms. Beatty. Ms. Couvret?
So I got to be in the audience when TJ spoke at the forum to that group about our homeless children. It was a really good experience for me to see what need we have and how our facilities may be lacking. And I was fortunate then to have a sit down with Kaylin Frank, who sits on the city council for the city of Poway. And she gave us some insight on how to find some funding to hopefully help out these kids at the county. So it's nice when you can kind of link two things to fulfill an important need. I thoroughly enjoyed the recognition dinner. That was my first one, and it's so wonderful to see so many dedicated employees that make PUSD as fantastic as it is. I wanted to thank staff for that incredible funding workshop that we had. There was more people here from staff than from the community, but it gave everyone a good forum to better understand the use of the CFD reimbursement money and how we can use it to really work on Rancho Bernardo and Poway High because those are in desperate need. I was fortunate to come by and take a look when Cheryl and Candace had their warriors out there cleaning up the Performing Arts Center. They orchestrated quite a war against that building, and it was left shiny. It's a shame that they had to use their own equipment. However, I did have a meeting today with the principal, and it seems like we're really getting a team together with community members, parents, the schools, and the district to really make it the best condition for our kids so they can be proud of their facilities. Let's see here. That did a lot of things here. I got to spend the weekend up in Rancho Cucamonga, beautiful place, with about 100 other school board members and superintendents. And there were different workshops that I was able to attend concerning learning and achievement, policy and judicial review, setting direction, and effective governance. So not only were these incredibly valuable lectures that we heard, but also being able to sit and talk to other people who are board members and superintendents who have a lot of the same issues that we have, and to see their creative solutions that they are attempting in their own districts. I love to steal ideas and make them better than try to reinvent the wheel. And one thing I can't be remiss is I attended a lot of CIF sporting events because it was the end of the winter season. I do have to give a call out to Poway High School girls varsity water polo, who won state for the first time in the school's history, which is huge. And I want to compliment Westview on their Division I win when they were fantastic. So, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Couvret. Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe.
I'll start off with those classified Employee of the Year visits. You said certificated, yeah. So those are our COYs, the classified Employees of the Year. Fun visits. They don't know we're coming, so it's always fun to see their faces when they realize they're not in trouble. Their boss isn't here to pick on them. We've got flowers. Look, it's a good thing. So that's fun. That PUSD recognition dinner, it's really amazing. We're recognizing every PTA and foundation president, and let's get them all then. Our toys, our COYs, and our VOYs. These are the teachers of the year, the classified of the year, and the volunteers of the year from every single school site, and the principals, plus all of our business partners. It really is such a fancy way to say thank you to everybody and recognize them. And Plus, those same business partners pay for it all, so we love our sponsors. That was a great event. I was fortunate to attend with quite a few of the cabinet up here, the Superintendent Appreciation Dinner with Dr. Phelps, where we got to appreciate her all night long over a lovely dinner. So that was wonderful. I was glad to be there. Thank you. Hopefully we'll go every year. I'm not going to take turns. You guys can come next year if you want, but I'm going again. I want to mention Poway Onstage. This is their 20th year of their Arts and Education Initiative with Missoula Children's Theater. I have known about the program for years, but this year one of my own children participated, and it takes on a whole new meaning. So last Monday, she was one of 94 K through 12 students who auditioned for an all-new musical version of The Secret Garden. And those students who were selected for the show on that Monday afternoon after school stayed till 8:30 rehearsing, and then for the next 4 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, rehearsed every day, 4 to 8:30 p.m., and put on 2 performances that Saturday. This program is amazing. They accomplished so much in 5 days, really outstanding. I don't know if I'll ever let my kid do it again, because getting her home at that time and saying, time to start homework, was really difficult. But it was an amazing experience. So thank you to Poway Onstage for continuing to fund that for our students. And it's free for all of those participants. I had a great visit with Dr. Patel to the pit at the first robotics competition at the Del Mar Fairgrounds last weekend. We checked out all 3 of our teams who were there, including Poway's Team Spider, RB's, should I say it, E-Motion? That seems wrong, but it's a play on Sigma Motion, doesn't sound right though, and Del Norte's Optics. And sad to say I missed Westview's Option 16 because they competed the weekend before, but it was a lot of fun. They all were having a great time showing off. We got to stay and see some competitions. Oh, yes, the flip. That was the big one. That was a big deal. Yes. Anyway, it was wonderful. Our team had great showings, and they won some awards. I think our students mentioned all the awards, in fact, so I won't repeat. You want to talk about Legislative Advocacy Day? Okay, I'll skip that. Let Dr. Patel go to that. And looking forward to seeing Westview's Adams family tomorrow night. I'll be there. Can't wait. Thank you, Ms. Latang.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe. So that brings it to my report. I'm the last one. Good evening, everyone. And like the migrating butterflies today, time has certainly flown since our last board meeting. And I have not managed to get in every single thing I wanted to get in these last 3 weeks, but I have been able to participate in some very important events throughout the district. Like many of my board members, I did have the opportunity and the thrill of surprising our classified employees for their Classified Employees of the Year award. The neat thing about participating in that surprise delivery is you get to hear the stories behind what makes them outstanding. And we don't mean to make them cry, but it's quite a beautiful thing to all show up and surprise them and shower them with words of compliment and praise. It really is a wonderful thing. For those board members who haven't had a chance to do it, I really recommend taking some time out to do that little bit of recognition. Speaking of recognition, I was also at the PowayUSD recognition dinner. We got some good highlights already from board members, but I do want to compliment Dr. Phelps for stepping up and being MC. I think some of our community have seen a side of you that they didn't know was in there.
She's funny.
Yeah, she's. It was lovely. And thanks to the dedication of all of the awardees and the guests at the event, the dedication to our students really is priceless. As some of our other board members, I attended the CFD meeting last week where Associate Superintendent Little explained to community members how exactly the CFD works. Despite signing papers that everyone does when they buy their homes in those areas, it still seems like there's ongoing confusion on what that money is and what it pays for. So it was lovely that they took quite a bit of time out to explain to our community members who were able to show up. It's a nice thing that we did for our community. I also went to the robotics competition at Del Mar. I won't go into that. Some neat things I did this month is I attended the San Diego Delegate Assembly for school boards. And so that's the monthly San Diego Region CSB, California School Boards Association Delegate Assembly. And there we had 3 guest speakers speaking about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, which was resources available to our school communities regarding social emotional supports for our students and our staff. The San Diego County Department of Education presented on a suicide prevention training, which I learned that we already do, which is kudos to our school district for already doing that. There was a K through 6 philanthropist-funded program called Sanford Harmony, which also sounds lovely. It's a free program available to K through 6, and it seems like our district is already looking into that program. So we're right ahead of the curve. And the last one was the World of Works curriculum, which they presented specifically for middle schools in the middle school area. Possibly something we can incorporate through homeroom time or something like that. And that also includes, despite seeming like it's a career-oriented program, it also has some social-emotional self-reflection pieces in their curriculum. And that's also available for free now. All three programs address different needs and provide options, which it's nice to hear that PUSD is exploring some of those. It's nice to walk into a room where everyone else thinks this is new, and I come back and I find out, no, we're already doing that. And lastly, I would like to report on the CSBA Legislative Action Day. Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe and I went up to Sacramento for the day to lobby our elected officials. We were able to meet with two of our assembly members that represent the district, Assemblymember Brian Manshine, and actually Shirley Weber does not represent us, but she speaks, she's on the education committee. It's a very powerful position for our school district to lobby, as well as two of our senators, Brian Jones, as well as Senator Tony Atkins' staff. And we were there with a focused intent to advocate for improved public education through the Full and Fair Funding Initiative, which would increase the base funding we get by about $1,900 per student. That's a significant amount. And with that kind of money, that would put us average with the nation in funding. So we're looking for, it seems like a lot of money, but it would basically put us at average with nationwide. And we think that our students deserve that. We also were able to speak about some bills that are headed through the legislative process, which will impact students. And if you haven't already, there are some cards I left out on the table out there. We're encouraging all of our community members to sign on to the petition for full and fair funding for all of our students. That's to get our legislature to agree on that $1,900. And that concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Dr. Patel, quick question. Your last point there, the full and fair funding, did we adopt a resolution to that effect?
We did. We absolutely did last year. Thank you. Dr.
Item next.
And the next item is 12.2, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Phelps.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. I have some recognitions of note to present to the board this evening. If you'd please look at your board packet for the full description in 12.2. I encourage you to also read them. In the interest of time, though, I'd like to highlight a few. Two of our middle school science Olympiad teams are advancing to the state tournament next month after placing in the top spots at the county science Olympiad competition. Oak Valley and Black Mountain Middle School and Westview High School also won the San Diego County mock trial competition and is heading to the state level as well. So I'd like to wish them all good luck to our teams. Two of our directors are being recognized also at the state level. Executive Director CTAE Kathleen Porter is being recognized with the Robert W. Rupert Award from the California Council for Adult Education. Our Director of Communications, Christine Peck, with the Emerging Communicator of the Year from the California School Public Relations Associations. It is also Christine Peck's birthday tonight, so happy birthday. And lastly, our very own Dr. Darshna Patel, Board President, has been named our first-term Board Member of the Year by the San Diego County School Boards Association, and we look forward to celebrating her and our other 5 winners and administrators who I mentioned at the last board meeting, our Administrators of the Year, at our May 11th Honoring Our Own dinner. Dinners, as some of you mentioned, I did have the honor and privilege of serving as MC because Miss Peck was sick, and if she didn't sound like Barry White and coughed all over the phone, I would have asked her to come, but I didn't want to get sick, and neither did anybody else who were there, so I had the privilege of MCing this wonderful event. So the annual PUSD recognition dinner on February 28th was a fantastic celebration of all of our classified employees, teachers, volunteers, and our business partners of the year. I was honored to serve as the MC, and we enjoyed the student performances that we had by Bernardo Heights Middle School and Katie Wu, our keynote speaker, and our what are they called again? From Westview Elementary, or Westview High School, our ROTC. Thank you. And we had Katie Wu as our keynote speaker, and she was phenomenal. As I said that night, what makes our district so special is Team PUSD, who gives so much of their time, treasure, and talent to our schools and our students. I want a big congratulations to the new PUSD Classified Employees of the Year, Deborah Siebert, bus driver, Alice Burgee, Student Services Assistant at Adobe Bluffs, Vicki Norris, our office specialist for facilities and maintenance, and we honor all of our district employees of the year at the upcoming board meeting, but it was great to be able to surprise them, as the other board members had mentioned, these classified employees with special visits, and I always thank them for going above and beyond for their work. Lastly, thank you for coming this late. We have every month, you've been seeing the amazing videos that are created by our talented Studio 701 student interns who have joined us this evening and who have waited a long time for this recognition this evening. Our student interns for PUSD's Excellence in Education series. They've been working so hard over the school year to highlight some of the top programs and innovation that's going on across the district. This month, I wanted to thank them personally and honor their contributions. They produce the highest quality and professional work. The interns are here tonight, so I'd like to ask that when I call your name, if you would please come forward and stand in front here, and so that we can all take a picture together. These are some of our most talented student videographers and photographers, and I just want to say thank you and great job. I know you guys are all going to be offered a job as soon as you leave, but the work that they do is nothing short of being professional, and you get to see some of those highlights on the screen behind us. So if Nepal, and I apologize if I mutilate your name a little bit, Nepal Arslan, Basma Bahia, Zach Camarino, Tyler Christian, Brendan Heath, Damian Henson, Katie Jose, and our teacher, Ross Callan. Can we please give them a round of applause for their excellent work? Dan, you want me to come forward? Okay. And that concludes my report.
And that brings us to our favorite item, 14.0. We are adjourned at, what time are we calling it? 8:13.